Hello, and welcome to the Macabre Podcast Universe. This is it. This is our final Marvel movie of Phase 3.
Finally.
Until they release more.
Never thought this day would come.
I know. It's the funny thing is that rewatching all of these so close together, as much as I love the series, for the most part, I am just like so relieved that we get to move on to something else.
Yeah.
Even though this is a good movie that we're talking about today. But yeah, so today we're talking about Spider-Man, the second in the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. You want me just to jump in?
Probably shouldn't watch this movie following directly after watching the season finale of Succession Season 2. Probably not the best thing to do in the world.
Yeah, because the finale of Succession Season 2 goes right up there with the finale of Breaking Bad and like all of that. It was unbelievable.
Can't stress enough. Still feel like I'm emotionally dealing with it.
Yeah, and jumping into like a fun, spirited movie was, I mean, it was kind of helpful because I think it could, that finale could have maybe in a weird way ruined our night.
But we weren't planning on watching 3 episodes, so 3 hours.
Yeah, we watched 3
of
hours
a show and then watch a movie.
It's 2 hours and 10 minutes. So, and then earlier that day, I'd watched The Mandalorian too. So yesterday was quite the movie and TV day. But this is Spider-Man. This is our last ep of our namesake. This is how we got our name, and of course, this is the podcast where two people analyze film franchises, and we basically exist to prove people wrong when they say that sequels are never better than the originals. And this movie is no exception. It's better than Homecoming. Okay.
And Homecoming's really good.
So it's directed by John Watts, same guy who did Spider-Man Homecoming. Produced by Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal, same producers of Homecoming. And if you'll remember, Amy Pascal is from Sony, and she owns the rights to Spider-Man, so she's always involved in the Spider-Man projects. It's written by Chris McKenna and Eric Somers. They wrote Homecoming.
Cool.
And it's kind of cool. There's a nice through line, I think. These two movies are some of the most cohesive sequels of the series. Just like in Guardians, it's like, oh yeah, this is one team that's doing both of these, instead of like how the Thor series feels totally different every single time.
Yeah.
And then music, Michael Giacchino. I looked up how to say his name.
Just say Giacchino.
Giacchino. And then the cinematographer, this was kind of interesting. Matthew J. Lloyd, he did the Power Rangers movie.
Okay.
And then
he did famously the one with Billy from Stranger Things.
Yes. And then he did the entire first season of Daredevil. So he actually had been
a season of show on television that took me forever to get through.
Yeah, and you really liked it. And then I
don't know if I really liked it.
Oh, I thought you did.
I think I liked it. I don't think it would have taken me that long to get through it if I really liked it. Yeah. I think I wanted to really like it, and I couldn't get interested for some reason. Sometimes you just can't get interested.
Well, the problem with that show is the minor characters were not very good. They weren't
so
well written.
Terrible. I just want to look up who.
Acting wasn't super great. Daredevil himself was awesome, and Kingpin, played by Vincent D'Onofrio,
that was my favorite part.
Amazing.
Favorite part.
And their dynamic and like the emphasis of the Catholicism.
So bad. The girl is so bad.
Yeah.
She was like she was the redhead. I don't remember. I know that she helped
blonde,
him.
but yeah,
she's redhead.
Oh, okay. But yeah, the emphasis on Catholicism and like the mixed martial arts and stuff that they were doing, all of that is cool. But then the second season was just bad.
I don't even know if I got through the first episode. I think
you didn't watch it because I told you.
No, I started it. I for sure 100% started it.
Oh, you started it? Okay.
Because I just thought that I had to. And then I couldn't. I think I just got really bored, and I got to a point where I'm like, if I'm not enjoying it, I don't have to watch it.
Right.
So then I just turned it off.
Yeah, and I watched the second season, and I was like, okay, I'm done with the show, because it was just it just the writing was not super great. And the way they introduced Punisher was just a little lackluster, in my opinion.
Okay.
Anyway, so the production company, we got Columbia Pictures, Marvel Studios, and Pascal Pictures. And it's distributed by Sony Pictures Release. That's why, viewer, if you wanted to catch up and you looked on Disney Plus to watch it, it's not there. Disney doesn't own the distributing rights. The movie comes out July 2nd, 2019, and it has a budget of $160 million, and it makes domestically $390,532,085. Worldwide, the movie makes $1,131,928,519. Huge success, of course. It's Spider-Man. That's what happens when you put Spider-Man on the title, typically. So now I'm going to get into my notes.
Those weren't your notes?
No. They had an idea when they first were pitching the Spider-Man thing that they were going to do a movie for every year of high school. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like they're doing that now
No,
because...
It seems super practical anyway.
Yeah, and I think with how big the story got and stuff...
I think it'd be kind of hard to show character growth that close together. If that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think they could.
Yeah.
I think they could, but it just would be... I think because of the size of the universe, I just don't find that very practical.
Yeah.
And I think we'd kind of get... Like, it'd be cool if in the next movie he's in college, you know? Like, that would... Seeing that growth would be nice. And then... Sony, so if you remember, Infinity War comes out, Spider-Man dies in Infinity War, and then they're like, hey, Spider-Man 2, or Far From Home is coming out in July next year, and so everyone was like, cool, we knew the guys were going to come back, but you didn't have to spoil it for us. Well, here's what happened. Sony was adamant about a July release. Marvel, not so much. They wanted to figure something out so that they weren't spoiling what was going on, but Sony was like, hey, guess what? We own the rights. We're doing July release.
What? That sucks.
Yeah. And then basically they said, okay, so we have two options. We can either wait until after Endgame comes out and start promoting the movie, or we can start promoting before Endgame comes out. And so it made more sense from a marketing standpoint to promote the movie for more than 2 months. So
yeah,
they did that. They never really, if I remember right, they never actually said like this takes place after Endgame.
But wasn't there
until after it
thing that happened where it was wasn't it people were seeing Endgame?
I'm saying before Endgame came out.
I know.
But tell your thing now.
But wasn't there a thing that happened where like people are in theaters to see Endgame and one of the previews is Far From Home and it spoils that Iron Man dies?
I had heard that from you,
that
but I don't
happened,
know.
but that was an was an accident.
Yeah, because I also read that at a certain point they had at some Endgame showings, like Tom Holland comes out and he's like, hey, stay tuned after the movie to see a trailer for Spider-Man.
Huh.
And then after you finish Endgame, you could watch the Spider-Man trailer because it spoils that Tony dies. But yeah, I guess you had said that happened, right? At a theater?
I heard that. I don't remember where or who told me that.
Yeah,
I guess I assume that you told me that.
If you went to a Avengers.
Yeah. Well, it's not only
screening.
like does it spoil that, but it's like I'm about to watch a 3-hour movie.
And I know that Tony dies.
The biggest thing was spoiled for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be...
I'd be so mad. I mean, I probably would still see the movie because it's like, I don't know. There's other things, that they have to wrap up.
Yeah.
But I would just be so pissed though for 3 hours.
Oh, I would be too. That would be horrible.
Yeah.
So that's why that happened. Working title of the movie is Fall of George. And then, as I told you off mic, J.K. Simmons, to reprise his role as J. Jonah Jameson, he was asked if he could do it. And the director said, like, if we can't get J.K. Simmons, I don't want to do it. He's like, it can only be J.K. Simmons, which is great because he is that character. And they basically said, J.K. Simmons called Sam Raimi, who directed the old Spider-Man movies, and asked for his blessing to make sure that he wasn't offending him. Which is pretty sweet. I like when actors do those sorts of things. And then, so because of Spider-Verse was so cool, the visual effects supervisor, Janik Sirs, that's the real name, they tried to make the movie more inventive in the visual effects aspect.
I'd say they nailed it.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where... I'm sure they had those ideas, but maybe they decided to go a little more bombastic with like Mysterio's
hologram stuff.
Yeah, because they saw Spider-Man and they were like, "Ooh, oh boy, we got to do really good." And I remember seeing something before the movie came out where Kevin Feige was like really happy that Spider-Man Far From Home is a really good movie, because Spider-Verse was so good. If this movie was not a really good movie, it would suck.
Yeah,
it would like really,
and people
drain
would
this
always
movie.
remember that.
Totally. And then just like as you heard last week with Endgame, they did release an extended cut. I saw it. All it has is 2 extra scenes. One where Spider-Man is fighting bank robbers and uses his Iron Man suit. Kind of cool. Whatever, though. And then
you mean his like nanotech suit?
The one that has the legs on it.
Okay.
He uses. And then another scene that has Mysterio before the final battle, like talking to his crew again and just like checking stuff out and drinking a green like mate tea. That's all.
Oh, we missed that?
Yeah. And then the whole illusion scene is I confirmed
Michael.
it's 100 it's 100% CGI. So all of that is CGI. And of course there's still.
Did you look up that Corridor Crew thing?
Yeah. To plug them again, Corridor Crew channel on YouTube.
What'd they say?
They analyze VFX shots and stuff every Saturday. But so they were saying that's all 100% CGI, and then there's still like shots of Tom Holland doing some motion capture, but they animate over him.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the suit that Mysterio is wearing, which is so cool, besides the dome helmet. So the dome.
And he's not talking about his uniform.
No, I'm talking about like after Spider-Man gets hit by the train.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, the suit he is wearing, the exact suit is an ILM motion capture tracking suit. So what they're doing that's super cool is Mysterio in comic books is like a master of illusions and stuff, and kind of like almost like a Scooby-Doo villain who's like tricking Spider-Man. And in this movie, they updated it to he's a visual effects artist. And by doing that, they literally put on like an ILM suit and made him a visual effects artist, which is so cool.
Also, one of my favorite things, and I'm sure this was going way back to comic book design, is his costume or his like uniform with the cape and everything.
Yeah.
Like having a dome head that you can't see his face in is
Very
like
cool.
Perfect for a character who you never know who he is.
Yeah.
So you never see his face. Love that.
Love it. And then I think we talked about this in a previous episode, but just to point it out, a couple months after the movie came out, there was a disagreement between Disney and Sony, and they were like, we're done with Spider-Man. We get him. We're not giving him to you anymore, Disney. Then they re-upped the deal, and as of now, what we have is a promised for sure at least one more Spider-Man solo movie with Tom Holland in the MCU. Other than that, we don't know the future, but that's what we got. And those are my notes. I plowed through those pretty quick, didn't I, Jordan?
You did a good job.
Okay. Now
we're going to take a long trip down memory lane.
Okay.
Because I only had one person to look up this time, and it's Mr. Jake Gyllenhaal. And Mike and I both agree on this. The hottest guy in Hollywood. That's right, people.
Absolutely.
They got him for this movie. So, Jake has been around for quite a long time. One of his first roles is October Sky. People have not seen that movie. It is just fantastic and heartwarming. Also has Laura Dern and Chris Cooper in it. And then we have Donnie Darko the year after, which is kind of crazy to think about. Are you listening to me?
I am. I'm trying to look something up.
Oh, okay. So then he does Donnie Darko, which also, if no one's seen that movie, you gotta watch it. Super, super cool indie feeling movie about time travel and insanity. It's also got Patrick Swayze. Yeah, super love it, great, good. And then same year, he's in Bubble Boy, which I think a lot of people forget that Jake Gyllenhaal's in Bubble Boy. He is Bubble Boy.
Oh, I don't think anybody forgets about that.
Okay. And then he is in 2005, Brokeback Mountain with Heath Ledger, directed by Ang Lee.
Yes.
I've never seen it. And then same year, he's in Jarhead, which, is that movie good?
Never seen it.
Okay, I've always kind of wanted to see that movie. It looks interesting.
Did you hit Day After Tomorrow? He was in that one too.
I'm not even there yet. Oh no, I did pass it. Okay. 2004 Day After Tomorrow. I haven't seen that full movie.
Oh, also he almost replaced Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 2 because I guess there was something to do with like Tobey maybe not being able to reprise the role. And so it's kind of funny that now he was able to still be in a Spider-Man movie in a different way. Kind of cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And if people at some point think that we're going over Jake for too long, suck it up. I'm having a commentary on every movie, just about every movie he's been in, because he's one of my favorites. So in 2007, this is kind of crazy. So like 2001, he's in Donnie Darko. 6 years later, he's in Zodiac.
Only 6?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Because he looks so young.
Yeah.
I don't know how old he is when he's in Donnie Darko or Zodiac, I guess. But just fantastic.
Yeah.
In Zodiac with Robert Downey Jr. and Mark Ruffalo, among several other amazing actors. David Fincher movie. Great. Also a great book. Recommend the book.
Oh, yeah. I got to read the book still.
Written by Jake Gyllenhaal's character in real life, Robert Graysmith. And then he's in Brothers, which I've heard is a really good movie that I think has Tobey Maguire in it.
It does.
And Natalie Portman. And then we have, in 2011, Source Code.
So that's
which
pretty
is a
fun
pretty
movie.
Cool indie movie. I really like science fiction movies that are very contained.
Yeah,
very contained science fiction. They could have like global effects, but it's just so contained to like the specific area or thing or person.
And that one's not like an amazing movie, but it's a pretty fun popcorn. Twisty movie.
I don't know if I've ever rewatched it, but I did really like it.
Yeah, isn't Vera Farmiga in that movie?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But nice call, buddy.
Yeah.
Also Michelle Monaghan.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's in End of Watch the year after with
Michael Pena from Ant-Man.
And then in 2013, huge year for Jake.
This is the enemy.
He's in Prisoners.
And Prisoners, yeah.
And he's in Enemy. So didn't he came out with 2 movies in 2013? I never realized that.
But I think Enemy didn't come out in the U.S. until 2014.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So people...
No, wait, hang on. I know what you're going to say. Okay. But do you think Enemy... What do you think is his best performance? Are you gonna? Can you
his best performance ever? Well, recently rewatched Prisoners, and it is just absolutely insane. But we're not done with the filmography. Okay. We're going over our Marvel rankings today, but right now we're going through our Jake rankings.
Yeah. Well, and Prisoners is one of the best movies that's come out this decade.
One
for
of
sure.
The best. I would consider. I mean, it's not a true story, but true crime. Let's just call it in that genre.
And detective, crime. One of the best
I've ever seen. So, like, if anyone is really into that kind of stuff, you've probably already seen this movie. And if you haven't, huge recommend on our part.
Personally, also, controversial opinion, but I think it's Hugh Jackman's best role by a long shot. I can hardly think of a second.
I think so, too. And then Paul Dano. He's my number 2 boy after Jake. And he is also very creepy and cool in this movie. And then Enemy, you get to double the Jake. Because he sees his doppelganger.
That's true.
And it's great. And also, though, a movie that is... watch it when you're in a clear headspace and not feling too depressed. Because it will make you depressed. No matter where you're at.
It's a weird movie.
It puts me in a weird place.
Yeah.
And then the year after that, he is in Nightcrawler. Which famously, so he's in Nightcrawler, and then the year after that, he's in Southpaw. So famously, Nightcrawler, he loses a lot of weight. Not like Joaquin Phoenix Joker level a lot of weight.
No.
But he loses a lot of weight to get to look like he's constantly hungry and he looks like a wolf. Like that was what he was going for. Yeah. Because it perfectly symbolizes his character in that movie.
See, that was like a good use of it, I thought.
Yeah, I think so too. That movie is so good. So then next year he's in Southpaw, and he famously, so this is, all within a year, he loses a ton of weight, and then he gets crazy buff for Southpaw because he's a boxer.
Yeah. Southpaw is another movie that it's not great, but it's fun if you like Jake Gyllenhaal. Like I
still have never seen it.
It's pretty good.
It's got Rachel McAdams too for Rachel heads.
The problem with boxing movies, I mean, and I'm being serious here, is it's like when you watch a boxing movie, you just think, oh, it's not Rocky. It's not a Rocky movie. If it's not a Rocky movie, it's kind of hard to live up to it because it's always compared to Rocky.
Is it based on anything?
No.
Southpaw?
No. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's not.
No, I didn't mean to click on that.
Oh no, she's in Amazon.
wanted me to go to Disney Lego.
Ah.
Okay, so then same year Southpaw, Everest, which according to Mike is a great movie. I still
really
have not seen
enjoy it. Really enjoy it.
I've heard it's very exciting. And then also same year he's in Demolition. Not a great movie. Good performance by Jake. Terrible performance by Naomi Watts.
Yeah, what's
she
the
does
deal
this
with
weird
that?
sexy voice thing over the phone, but that's not the character. If that makes sense, it's a dumb choice.
I don't like that.
Also, the movie was a little boring.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that director. He did Dallas Buyers Club and what's the one
Chris
with
Cooper's in it though.
Yeah, Chris Cooper is in it, and when he's in it, he's in it. He did Dallas Buyers Club and then Wild, and his movies just kind of missed the mark for me. I'm not really quite. I'm always like a little bit detached from the story. The way he tells it just doesn't quite work for me.
Yeah, I don't really have it. I mean, other than like. I did like Dallas Buyers Club, but that is a kind of movie that I like. Who was rewatching that movie?
No
one's rewatching that movie.
And even though
it's really good, and I think it is important.
Yeah,
and I think that Matthew McConaughey did it. Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto did a really good job, but no one's rewatching those.
Yeah, and it is. I don't know. Yeah,
you didn't like that movie?
I mean, I liked it because of I like the performances. I don't like the movie. And I don't like the story or anything. Like I don't really connect to it. That's how all of his movies are.
Okay, I like that one because I just thought it was a story that needed to be told.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2016, we have Nocturnal Animals.
Yeah.
And let's take, because people are so interested in what I'm going over right now. Let's go into what I thought about Nocturnal Animals.
Yeah, let's go.
First movie ever directed by Tom Ford, the famous...
Second one.
Oh, second one, sorry. But he is a fashion designer.
Yeah.
First of all, this is when I realized that Armie Hammer is probably the most boring person. That like he looks the most boring because he is so symmetrical and perfect.
Yep. There's no edge to him.
Yeah, I'm pretty bored with him. And then,
he can be really good though.
No, he can be great.
Social Network. Amazing.
Well, sorry to bother you, right?
But
he's like gross.
He's disheveled.
Finally, gross looking.
This when he looks like nice, it's a little
perfect.
like okay.
Yeah. So. This was after we saw it, I was like, man, Amy Adams sucked. This is so bad. And then I think you talked to Evan about it. And Evan said some things where I'm like, whoa. And I think maybe my parents were watching it one day or something. And I was watching some of it. And I think I finally understood what it was. And you're not supposed to like her. If that makes sense, you know? Like, I think she is the protagonist and you want to like her, but once you have that epiphany of what's going on, it's like, oh, she did a really sucky thing.
I think that movie falls into that funny category where I think I'd like to think this happens very rarely, but I don't think when I walked out that I really got it. Totally. And then the more I thought about it and talked to people, the more I was like, oh, that is a really good movie. And I've wanted to watch it again. It's a really heavy movie, so it's hard to want to watch it.
And I think that's why, like for me, I didn't really like it when I originally watched it because I was like, it means something. I don't know what it means. And then it's just all this gross stuff happens. And now I just feel gross and it makes me feel kind of mad. Yeah. That it's making me feel gross. If that makes sense.
I think it kind of falls into that category of movie that like, whether you like it or you don't like it, at least it was challenging. You know, whereas it wasn't just like cookie cutter.
Totally.
It's weird and it challenges you to think.
What was the other movie Tom Ford did?
He did An Ordinary Man or A Simple Man or something. It's a movie with Colin Firth. A Single Man. Yeah.
Then 2017, Life. Which everyone out there was watching an interview with Ryan Gosling and Jake Gyllenhaal promoting this movie, but you might have noticed they didn't promote the movie because they were having too much fun together.
Yeah,
I think they hardly talk about the movie. This movie is so scary. Seriously,
I didn't find it so scary.
I thought it was super scary, especially at the end when he's screaming at people not to come to the ship. Yeah. And they look inside and that I think to me it just rarely happens. The Thing is perfect. The Thing does it better than any other movie. Mm-hmm. But the monster gore stuff was what really scared me. And often that stuff doesn't scare me. But this movie, I don't know what it just struck a chord.
Well, and do you know the whole thing about what that movie was, the ending was supposed to be?
I can't remember.
So this would have been really cool. It would have been the exact same ending. But the idea was that what they had got from space was the alien symbiote that becomes Venom.
Oh, Venom.
So it would have been like this really elaborate movie that's its own story that then leads into, and like without, it was gonna, no, they weren't gonna tell anybody. It was just gonna come out and people were gonna be like, kind of like a Cloverfield connection thing where you're like, oh, that's Venom? And then it would, like the guy who discovered it probably would have been Venom. You know, it would have been a different Venom movie that we would have gotten.
Yeah.
But it was a Sony movie, so there were even theories afterward where people were like, "Oh, is that what it is?" And then, but Sony like didn't give them the rights or something like that.
That's pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah.
And then Okja, same year, you get to see. I mean, I don't think they're in a scene together. Paul Dano and Jake Gyllenhaal in a movie together again. Jordan's really happy.
Yeah.
Okja's so good. Micah didn't really like it.
I'll watch it again. I wasn't crazy about it.
And then he's in Stronger, which is the Boston Marathon movie.
Yeah.
And then in 2018, he's in Wildlife, first movie directed by Paul Dano. Love that these boys are buds. This movie is, I think the longer that I've been away from it, the more I've actually liked it. I don't think I could ever rewatch it. It is way too sad for me.
I didn't like it.
But I thought it was visually, it looked very nice.
Yeah, I think, and as I've told you, but for the audience, I think the movie is a good movie. Yeah. I just don't like it.
Yeah, I think that this movie was exactly what I expected from Paul Dano.
Yeah.
Pretty
I can't
slow,
wait for him to make something else.
A little boring. Based on my interviews that I've seen with him, kind of seems like who that guy is. Yeah. But just such a good movie. Don't know if I'd watch it again, though. But I do recommend it. And then he's in Sisters Brothers.
Yeah,
movie with Joaquin and John C. Reilly. Kind of a boring movie. Don't think I'd recommend it to anyone, and super weird. And then he's in one of the worst movies Mike and I have ever seen, and we couldn't even finish Velvet Buzzsaw.
Oh my gosh. Which
directed
is the same director
by
as the Nightcrawler, Tony Gilroy.
And this is probably one of the ugliest movies I've ever seen.
It looked like it was a CW show. I don't know what was going on there. And he had Robert Elswit, the guy who did the cinematography for There Will Be Blood, did the cinematography.
And you know what's dumb about it?
I don't know what happened.
You know what's dumb about it? You know, I know. Also had Billy Magnuson in it. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
But it was just like, it's a movie about art, so they're really hammering hard all these people in the art world. You got the flamboyant gay guy who is Jake, and then you have I forget the other woman who's in it.
Yeah, she was the girl who was in
Toni Collette's in it, and she's also just super eccentric and weird, and everyone's like a bee to each other.
But they're playing like caricatures. They're not like actually getting to
that's what I'm getting at. They're playing caricatures, and this is what everyone expects from the art world. And I'm not even saying it's wrong for some people. But it's like the caricature thing was just so bad.
Wait, what do you mean wrong for some people?
Well, because some people probably actually act like that.
Oh,
who were in the art world.
Yeah. But it didn't feel genuine. But I don't. And if someone's like, yeah, but that's what they were going for because it's the art world and no one is really genuine because it's all about money. I'm not. Who wants to watch a movie like that? No, they didn't pull that off. If that's what they were trying to pull off.
Such a bad movie. And then we get to Spider-Man: Far From Home. Thank you for taking this Jake Gyllenhaal ride.
That was Jordan's revenge for the long production notes I did on Captain Marvel.
Also, Jake's just great.
Yeah, and then this is kind of interesting because we forgot to look this up, but the voice of Edith is a woman named Dawn Michelle King, and she is in 2 movies. She's in one. The first movie she's in is Dumb and Dumber When Harry Met Lloyd, and she is Woman in that movie. And then in Spider-Man, she is Edith.
I wonder if she...
she is in the editorial department, first assistant editor on like a ton of the Marvel movies. So she's one of the editor helpers. So they put her in the movie.
I wonder if she like reads like as a voice actress for like audiobooks.
Maybe. But it sounds like maybe they're just like, hey, you want to do this? Or maybe she was editing and just put in a filler voice or something. Yeah. I don't know. But that's what we got. And so that is Spider-Man: Far From Home. Thank you for listening. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Okay, so the movie starts, and we got... I think I do that every time we do something. I go, probably. Okay, so the movie starts, and we're in Mexico.
We're fading in.
We see... a
Mexican town blown to bits.
Yeah, and we see
Nick Fury
and...
Kobe
Smulders. Maria Hill, that's the character name. And they're like, what are we doing out here? This is weird. And
then Nick says, Fury, sorry, says that people were describing that the storm had a face. So then this wind monster comes up out of the ground, and then you also see this guy wearing a dome helmet head thing. They can't see his face. He looks like a magician.
And the face comes off, and it's Jake Gyllenhaal
fighting the thing. And
says,
you're like,
what are you doing
wow,
here?
I didn't think we'd get him this early.
Yeah. And then it says Spider-Man Far From Home. And then we hear Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You. And we see a slideshow that basically...
made by a student.
Yes, that does a smart thing for the movie. Because they did have a lot of like... as I guess something to mention is as the movies have gone on, online culture is bigger. And as these movies go, just in franchises, like there's all these questions and things like that people say on the internet and stuff. And like if these movies were made 20 years ago, I think a lot of this stuff they wouldn't care about. But people are so invested that they have to do some over-the-top expository information. I think this movie actually pulls off the exposition
they do
really
it
well.
so well. Well, because I think you're getting into... So they have a slideshow, a memorial of Tony... And it's,
all the Avengers that died.
Actually, yeah, all the Avengers that died. Hilarious Shutterstock photos, pixelated photos, a lot of doves.
Yeah, and Getty Images on the last photo.
Yeah, and then it's...
Comic Sans font.
Comic Sans font, that's right. And then we have, I forget that girl's name, but...
Betty Brant.
Betty Brant and this other guy.
Named Jason.
You know?
Yeah, I looked at it this time.
Okay. They do like the school news. Remember we had to do that in 8th grade?
Yeah, that's what I always think about
I hated that so much. I hated that so much.
Did you have to be on camera?
Everyone had to be on camera at one point.
Really?
Everyone
don't remember
did.
that.
Were you never on camera?
I probably was.
Everyone had to be on camera.
And we'd watch it on Fridays?
Yeah, I hated it with a burning passion. I hated it as much as...
You think they have those anywhere?
They have to, right?
Do you think if we went in there and we said, hey, we went to school here, can we have this tape?
I wonder if you can just
or
get
would
them in
we
the
get
library.
arrested if we asked for
I wonder if you called the Cascade Library.
Yeah.
If they can get them.
That would be wild.
Yeah.
I would love
to watch
that.
all of them. Not even just mine.
Just
all
our
of
classes?
Them. Yeah.
Oh, man.
But I hated it as much as being forced to try out for the 8th grade school play.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Jordan does not like to be in front of people. That's why she's behind a microphone right now. Anyway, so sorry. They're like the school news anchors, and they go through talking about the blip, which was when everyone was half of the universe was obliterated by Thanos, and they said it was for 5 years, and they explained so quickly and so simply that if you were blipped, you came back at the same age as when you were blipped. So you didn't age 5 years, but everyone else aged 5 years who weren't blipped.
Yeah, and I guess there was no school during that time because Brad's still at school. I'm kind of confused about that. So I guess for 5 years...
Technically, he was 5 years younger than everyone in that class.
But wouldn't he just be the same age as them?
No, because he was not blipped.
Yeah, but I thought he was in their class.
No, he became in their class. Because, think about it. Because I remember the first time we saw it, I was pretty confused because they do it so quickly.
Yeah.
But if you think about it...
I thought the implication was he's like 22 now. Because he looks older than all of them. So it's like he was their age, and then he wasn't blipped. He lived 5 years, and I guess there's been no school.
But there was school, because remember when they showed the little footage of the band, like half of the school band, like being obliterated, and then them coming back during a basketball game?
Well, it's certainly less problematic that he's into MJ if he's under 18. So that's true. That makes me feel a little bit better.
Well, because I was thinking... Because remember when Flash Thompson had the champagne?
I'm going to look up how old he is.
Yeah, sure. When Flash Thompson had the champagne on the flight and he's bragging about it, and Zendaya says like that kid's still 16 because he was blipped for 5 years, but he's still 16. He's not 21 now.
Yeah.
When the other guy was not blipped, and so that would make him 11 when the blip happened, and now he's 16. Because he was not blipped, which means he is now in their class.
Okay.
It's super weird to think about because it's just not a thing that exists.
Yeah.
So it's pretty confusing.
So I think the year... Okay, so on Marvel Cinematic Universe Wiki, it says Brad was born somewhere between July 2007 to December 2007. And then the movie takes place in 2021. So that would mean he's 14.
Well I guess he doesn't have to be in their class.
Yeah.
They're on a school trip, right? Like, does it have to be their grade?
Yeah. I guess I guess you're right. You're right.
That guy's not 14.
Yeah. No, I think
you can like
I don't
maybe
think
get away
they
with
actually
anything.
have the information on here. You know how sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So all I'm trying to say is that guy was not blipped, and that's why he's older.
Right.
And that's why he was the example that was used.
Right. I got that. I just thought that I already explained it. Anyway.
Were you
either
thinking
way,
that?
it's funny.
Were you thinking that beforehand? He's always been in their class.
I thought that, let's say they're freshmen.
Yeah.
This is just going to be about Brad. This is the Brad episode. That Brad was, say he's 15. Everyone gets blipped at 15. He lives till he's 20, and there's, I guess, been no school because he looks so much more mature than everyone else.
I think that's just
a thing. And then they all come back, and they're all 15, and he's 20 now. And now he's a 20-year-old in their freshman class.
No, it's just, unfortunately, that guy does not look 16.
Okay.
The actor does not look 16.
Well,
but
I'm okay if he
16.
is. So the idea is
Tom
he was
Holland
11.
doesn't look 16.
Right. So the implication is he was 11 when the snap happened.
That's how I understood it.
That makes more sense, and I still like that he looks older because it's pretty funny looking when he pops up and like says, "Hey."
The funniest part is that he's hot now.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's like the
I think
pretty
I
big
was
joke.
way overthinking that.
Okay. I was the first time we watched it too. I remember in the movie, I'm like, "What is that?" Now I'm going to be figuring this out the whole movie.
Well, and I guess this leads into something else to talk about is that, Homecoming was like a high school comedy, based on like John Hughes stuff. This is like a road trip comedy movie, and it's so funny.
Yeah.
This is like right up there with Guardians for like funny level. Like the first time I saw it, I was laughing like the whole movie.
Yeah.
I couldn't really believe it. And then I had to get up and go to the bathroom, and there were girls sitting next to us, and they totally laughed at me because I had to go twice, I think, during the movie.
You did.
And I was like, sorry that I have such a small bladder. I didn't say that to them. I didn't speak to them, but it was kind of scary. Don't laugh at people if they have to go to the bathroom multiple times in a movie.
Yeah,
Sometimes it just happens.
Micah, if that's like one bad theater experience you have in the last year, I consider you lucky. I have bad theater experiences almost every time I go to the theater, and we go to the theater a lot. Micah,
can we tell them about Dr. Sleep?
Yeah, where Mike and I are seeing Dr. Sleep, and it's great because the movie's the trailers are about to start.
Yeah.
And no one's sitting by us.
Yeah.
It's great. I'm like, oh, finally? Is it finally going to work to where I don't have to sit by anybody? Because I always have to sit next to somebody.
And I usually don't.
Usually the people smell really bad. And ever since they introduced beer into Cinemark, which I don't really have a problem with, but someone always smells like beer and sweaty. Mm-hmm. And they're always sitting next to me, and I have to smell it the whole time, covering my nose, trying to breathe, trying to enjoy a movie. And then, so we're here. And right as the trailers start, these two girls come and sit next to me, and I'm like, and I know this might be a little ridiculous, but sometimes I'm like, oh, they're girls, they'll probably be fine. For some reason, guys, to me, like guys I see on their phone more than girls in movies.
Which people? It's just 10 years ago, you wouldn't even had your phone at the theaters. Just turn it off.
Yeah.
Seriously, just turn it off. There's no reason to keep your phone open.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, maybe they'll actually like shut up about it. But of course, Dr. Sleep is technically horror because it's Stephen King, and horror movies just attract the worst audiences.
That's so true.
But so, they're here, they have their popcorn, and they are just talking the whole time. And it's like, oh yeah, wow. They're not even talking to each other. They're just talking out loud.
And then she's on her phone, and I didn't notice it for a while, but I keep hearing crinkling of like crinkling wrappers because they brought in a bunch of food.
But before that, they had popcorn sitting between them, and I'm looking at it, and the box of popcorn just falls over, and they are just kind of like, oh, okay.
It like fell onto the floor, and then they're like getting it, and they're just being so loud.
They were like, so they took out a box, and they're crinkling for all of the candy, and then whenever they're done, they just threw the wrapper on the floor. They just threw it, but like the most nonchalant throw I've ever seen. Like this person litters when they're driving.
Oh,
kind of throwing.
But remember, she took her phone. She had it out. She was texting, of course, and she pulled up something and she put the light up next to what she was looking at so she could read like the nutritional value. Which you shouldn't be concerned about that when you're watching a movie. And so I said to Jordan, I'm like, do you want to switch? And Jordan had a kind of a loss of expression, and she was like, I don't know. And I go, let's just move, because the theater wasn't very full. And she's like, are you sure? And I go, I'll go look and see if there's a spot. If I don't return in, or 2 seconds, then we'll stay here. And I get up, and right behind us, there's like a spot that's not as good of a spot, but there's no one. There's someone sitting there, and they were a little alarmed when I came and sat down because there's always violence in theaters these days, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Not always, but
the threat of.
I think he was kind of like, what's this guy doing? These are assigned seats. And I kind of sit down, give him a little wave. I almost told him, and then I thought that'd be really distracting. And then Jordan came over, sat down, and we watched the rest of the movie in peace.
The biggest problem was just that this movie was so long, 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours.
Which is too long.
And we were only half hour into the movie, and it was like, Jordan will be, even if the movie is like a 10 out of 10, she will have wished she'd have stayed home, and I want you to enjoy yourself.
I wish people like that would stay home. Clearly, why? I just feel like that's a waste of money for a movie goer like that.
Know.
Don't you think? Because they're buying the ticket for the movie.
I don't get it.
And then I'm assuming, based on what I was seeing, these people, when they go to the movies, they always buy concessions, which is a giant drink, a giant thing of popcorn, and several things of candy. That is so much money. That is so much money to come to the movie and then to just not really watch it.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's such a waste of money.
It's crazy. So then we find out that Peter Parker has a plan for MJ. He has this whole romantic plan. And this begins what I've said in a Homecoming episode, and what they really nail in this. The key to a good Spider-Man story is, say it with me, you have to pit him up against doing regular human things.
People are saying this with you.
And responsibilities, and then his hero duty and his responsibility to being a hero.
What I like is that
Did you say it with me, Mike?
What I like is that they didn't explain how he jumped from liking the girl from the last movie to Zendaya or MJ.
Yeah.
Because in the last movie, it was like he liked that girl so much. And usually in movies, it's like, okay, she's the one, That's just how movies go. And then now he likes MJ, and it's like, cool, it's high school.
We also know the name MJ and Peter Parker, so that you don't have to spend too much time describing why he likes her.
Yeah.
There's 60 years of comic books.
Yeah.
We get it. And then we see him and Aunt May at the homeless shelter that I believe Aunt May runs, and Jon Favreau's there, and there's a little something going on between Aunt May and Jon Favreau. And we see that Aunt May is extremely hip in this movie. She's like cool.
Hip is the wrong word. They made her hot, and it's so stupid.
It's very weird to me. It's just not my Aunt May.
Yeah.
I like my Aunt May. She can be cool, because Rosemary Harris was cool in all the Spider-Man movies, but it's just
the Aunt May.
There's something weird about it.
The Aunt May in Spider-Verse is cool too.
She's way cool. I expected her at the end of that movie to turn into a Spider-Man.
Me too.
And if that happens in a future Spider-Verse movie, I might do a fist pump.
Yeah,
probably, because that Spider-Verse was a fist pumper movie.
But yeah, no, Marissa Tomei is just. I mean, we've talked about this in Homecoming. I guess I don't really have energy to talk about it anymore. Bad casting.
Yeah.
Love Marissa Tomei. Terrible casting.
Yeah. And then we have that. So Peter's getting ready to leave, and Aunt May throws a banana at him. It hits him in the face, and she says something about Peter Tingle.
Yeah.
Famously Spidey sense. I know that the writers just thought it was funny, and it kind of comes around to some good jokes throughout.
Yeah.
And there was such an emphasis on Spidey sense in Spider-Verse. I wonder if maybe that was part of it.
I think it's just a big part of Spider-Man.
Yeah,
and they're like,
right.
hey, we haven't mentioned this yet in our universe.
Yeah.
So then it's the day of their trip. They're going to Venice, and this is when Peter starts his whole plan to try to get to sit next to MJ. And then, of course, it backfires on him. And Ned ends up sitting next to, her name is Betty.
Yeah.
Betty. And then MJ sits next to the now hot guy. Brad. And then we're introduced to, what's that one guy's name? Not Martin Starr, the other guy.
Oh, JB Smoove.
JB Smoove, comedian.
Yeah.
We're introduced to his character, which was he in the last movie? I don't think so.
No,
okay,
he
so
wasn't.
he introduced to him. He's already super funny because Martin Starr is also reintroduced, and he's saying like, "You want the first shift or the first shift or the second shift?" And JB Smoove is like, "Give me the third shift. I got Dramamine, all this stuff. He's just gonna be sleeping the whole time." So it's like, cool. He's fun.
He's funny. Him and Martin Starr have a really funny comedic energy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both comedians, so they're playing off each other. And then JB Smoove has this like witchcraft thing throughout the
whole
movie.
thing.
Where
Do you remember? Did you notice at one point when he has the Edith glasses on? Okay,
Yeah.
he's reading the history of witchcraft.
Yeah, and he's like upset. He has like a witchcraft past or something, and he's like, as a man of science, I think witchcraft is happening. That's how he's like coping with this Marvel world.
Well, it's just funny because a guy of science is coping with medieval ways of thinking. But then, so
this is the new Dark Ages.
The new Dark Ages, yeah, super funny. So then Martin Starr. So Peter ends up sitting next to Martin Starr, and Martin Starr in the first movie was very funny. Classically, Martin Starr is a very low energy person. Apart from his character of Guilfoyle from Silicon Valley, like he is very low energy, monotone. Yeah. This movie, he is the opposite.
It's very
and
funny.
It's so he does such a good job, and it's like cool. I hope he does more zany things, whatever he does next. But it's so funny because Peter sits next to him, and he says like, "Do you hear about my wife pretending that she got blipped?" And she ran off with a guy that she goes hiking with.
Yeah, we did the fake funeral.
Well, the funeral was real. Fake.
Yeah, it wasn't fake.
It was so funny.
And that was like a thing where it's like Spider-Man wanted to be with a girl. He gets caught up in a stupid thing with his principal. Classic Spider-Man. Good writing again. Then we arrive in Venice. Really cool because Jordan and I went to Venice on our honeymoon, and they see the Rialto Bridge and is it St. Peter's or St. Mark's Basilica that's in...
I don't remember.
And there's St. Mark's Square. Yeah, it's St. Mark's Basilica.
Okay.
And there's St. Mark's Square, and we're like, whoa, we've been there. That's really cool.
And then
and you see in the background.
Well, hold on. Hold on one second. Okay. Remember when Ned is telling Peter, "You don't want to be with a girl. We're going to be single American men in Europe. This is our time to talk to European girls." And then throughout the flight, him and Betty got into a relationship.
Yeah, and it's very high school where they call each other babe and wait up, and they're always
and thinking that they're so
stuff.
mature about it.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
Ned is like MVP of the movie. Like his performance is really, really funny.
Yeah.
His timing and like deliveries are crazy funny. But in Venice, it's really cool. If you look in the background, keep your eyes peeled. There's a scene where I think it's right after Peter buys the Black Dahlia, or right before for
those,
MJ.
Yeah.
And you see Jake Gyllenhaal in the background, just his side profile. So he's like there scoping out the territory, getting ready for the Mysterio attack of Venice.
Yes.
And I was noticing too, there's a few times in this movie where extras just look a little off, or they're watching Spider-Man. Like in that scene where he's talking to Mary Jane, before the guy with the roses walks up to them, there's a guy.
I noticed that. A guy looking at him.
Kind of staring. And I think he's in Mysterio's
I
crew.
noticed that too. And then also when in Prague, when Mysterio and Peter are at that bar.
Yeah.
The scene starts. I remember it's a super wide shot that zooms in for a long time on them.
Yeah.
They're the woman sitting really close to the camera.
Yeah.
Is part of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I was like, I just thought it was so odd. Usually they don't, like, cameras are not that close to extras for that long.
I know.
I thought it was a little odd. And I'm like,
weird.
Oh, that makes sense.
But as the movie goes on and the second time you watch it, you kind of see that there's some extras throughout the movie in different locations that just don't quite look like extras.
Yes.
And they attract a little bit of your attention as a viewer. And that's a pretty cool touch that I think that elevates the movie to like, oh man, there's like another interesting
helps with rewatchability.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And so then this water monster comes out, and Peter hadn't brought his Spider-Man suit with him.
He did. So it's in the hotel though.
Yeah. So I met with him literally, but he throws on a little like mask from Venice, and he's trying to help this Mysterio guy. Takes him a while. They're able to stop this whole thing. And then they're meeting with the kids.
And everyone's looking online, looking on their phones, on their computers, and they're like, who was that guy? And people are calling him Mysterio. And
And what I thought is interesting in this movie, they play out Mysterio just long enough that even though I had read many Mysterio comics, I was kind of like,
is he who you thought he was?
Yeah, I'm like, is this a different version of the character I don't know? Or, and I know some people are probably like, that's stupid, Micah. He's just a villain. You know that I knew he was the villain, but I was like, maybe they're going to do something weird where he's not the villain, and then like the next movie, he's the villain. Like, or something weird like that. Because they play it out just long enough that you're like, okay, I guess he's a good guy. And Jake Gyllenhaal plays it pretty well. He doesn't he's not like overplaying his hand until we know he's a bad guy.
Yes.
He's doing, actually a really good performance.
Yeah.
It's I expected that from him.
No, you're right.
Like there's some depth to this performance, and as a Spider-Man fan, it was exciting to see Mysterio. He's a really classic villain, and when they announced him, I'm like, I'm not really sure how they can pull off Mysterio, because that's like a tough thing to not be just a cheesy, crappy villain.
Yeah.
Because it's cool in the comic
really
books, but it does feel like a Scooby-Doo. Like we pulled off the mask, and they're like, if it wasn't for Spider-Man, we would have gotten away with it.
Meddling Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So they're in Venice, that all happens, and then Nick Fury, this whole time up to this point, Nick Fury's been trying to get a hold of Peter, and Peter's been ghosting him because he just wants to have a summer vacation. And then, of course, because it's Fury, he goes to Venice, and he makes Peter come with him to this area where like S.H.I.E.L.D. is like, and also Mysterio's there, and they're like, Peter, you need to do this thing for us.
When he takes him there, they get on a boat and they go by this place that Jordan and I walked by every single day when we were in Venice for 4 days. And that is pretty cool. I'm like, oh man, if you just walk past that bridge, there's that little cafe we would go to. And then, I still feel like I could kind of get around in Venice if we went there right away.
Most stressful city to ever navigate the first time you're there, though.
Yeah, but once you have a little bit of a routine, we were there just long enough that I'm like, okay, I could like find St. Mark's Basilica and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, it's the coolest city on earth.
Currently, it is flooded. 85% of it's flooded. Anyway, so Peter officially meets Mysterio, Quentin Beck, and he's learning about all these elementals, and then he also learned that Quentin Beck is from a different version of Earth, and his Earth was obliterated by these elementals, and now they're showing up here, and he's here to help them. Yada yada yada. Peter, you have to help.
And what I thought was smart about the kind of twist about Mysterio, even though we knew kind of, was that when they did bring him in, the way he said that to Peter Parker, I thought like, oh, they messed up the timeline in Endgame, and that's why he's here. That's what I thought. Like,
interesting.
Something happened that like branched timelines. He's an alternate. They're opening up the multiverse. This is the movie that does it.
Yeah.
And then as the movie goes on,
they even say multiverse.
You're like, oh, they didn't. They kind of tricked me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Peter declines and is like, I can't. I really got to go on this trip. And then the next morning, you find out that their trip has been upgraded and they're going to Prague, which is where they needed to go because that's where the next elemental is going to show up. So Fury is behind all of this. And they go to Prague and they're going to go to this night festival. And then not only that, I know I'm skipping some stuff, but they've also been upgraded to go to the opera, which is going to protect his students.
You did skip the bus thing.
We did. I know we did.
The glasses. Okay.
So you can go ahead with that.
So Peter gets the glasses from Tony, the Edith glasses, even dead, I'm the hero glasses from Tony. And that's the acronym. And he has like state-of-the-art defenses, and it's basically Tony saying, you're the new me. Like, you have the responsibility. I know you can do this. And as he's going, he gets caught like getting a new suit from this girl, and it looks like he's having like a sexual encounter in a random spot, and Brad takes a photo.
With some weird European woman.
Yeah, and this is where the like road trippy, like kind of what is it, like Animal House lampoonness influence comes into the movie, because they're on this bus, and then he has the glasses on, and he's trying to figure out how to delete the information on Brad's phone, and we see that Flash Thompson has a text that's about his mother, like, where's my mother? Is she going to be home? And it says, like, no. And then, which I'll get to at the end of this. And then Flash Thompson sees the glasses, and he's like, hey, these are really
cool
nice.
Glasses.
And he puts them on, but Spider-Man had accidentally done a drone strike. And so then he accidentally, like, punches Flash kind of, and before he does that, Flash goes, no, I was genuinely paying you a compliment. Very funny. Puts him on. Kind of hijinks ensue. He stops this drone from killing Brad, and then he's able to delete the photo before MJ gets it. Now we're in Prague, and now you take over. I won't do it.
I don't know. So then they've been upgraded to the opera, and no one wants to go, but Peter's orchestrated it so that his classmates will be safe from what's about to happen. So they go to this 4-hour opera.
Yeah.
And that's when MJ asks Peter if he wants to sit by her.
Yeah.
And it's like, finally, Peter's going to get his moment. He's going to sit by MJ. They're going to share opera glasses. and right before the show starts, he has to leave. And it's just, this
that
is like
a heartbreaking
the
moment.
acting. Tom Holland's acting is so good in this scene because you can just feel that he so badly wants to do it. But Nick Fury is yelling in his ear, like, "Are you in position?"
Yeah.
Because it's like he has a responsibility.
MJ wants to sit by him and have the opera glasses, and it's just like that is what that's a Spider-Man story.
Yeah.
Like he just wants to be normal, but he can't. And then they fight the big fire and elemental.
MJ leaves the opera. Ned and Betty leave the opera. It's like, oh, he went to the light show. Let's go to the light show. So then Betty and Ned are in a Ferris wheel. MJ's trying to find Peter. Elemental shows up. Everyone's running out of the area. Betty and Ned are stuck in the Ferris wheel. And
there's some cool cinematography in this scene. And
I love the design of the elemental.
A little more like practical looking than I would expect this scene to look.
Okay.
Like some of the fire is definitely
very
real.
Cool shots.
Yeah,
that's hard to describe.
The action in this movie, because we're kind of used to what Marvel action looks like, and I would say each scene kind of looks better than the last in terms of the action until the last sequence is like, oh, this isn't just like, oh, this is fine action, whatever, let's just get through this to the end. Like the last act of the movie in London is actually a really well-crafted action sequence.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Like it holds my interest the whole time, which I cannot say for probably 85% of the Marvel movies. The last scene, I'm always kind of like, okay, whatever. I don't really care. Let's get through it.
Yeah, it's been exciting the whole time. Yeah, for this movie. Sorry. Spider-Man is fighting the Thing. Mysterio shows up, is also fighting the Thing. And it's getting powerful as it touches metal. So they're trying to figure out a way to not do it. Gets to a point where Mysterio's like, I need to do what I should have done last time.
Yeah.
Which you're just like, oh, he's going to sacrifice himself. So he drives himself through the heart of the beast, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it destroys it. And they win. And he's still fine. He's alive.
And there's that cool shot where Spider-Man shoots a web and it hits nothing in the air and he pulls it.
Yeah.
And then this like piece of a drone falls off that we find out later.
Yeah.
That's important.
So they win. Fury has another going to up into Peter's face and is like, I don't think Tony was right picking you. You haven't proven yourself. Mm-hmm. Blah, 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 blah. You're just a kid. So then, of course, so even though they win, Peter's just like, I don't want this. Like there's he's not ready to like take those responsibilities. He's a 16-year-old kid in high school just trying to like have a vacation.
Yeah.
And he's talking to Mysterio about this, and Mysterio was like, like you should get the girl. That is what you want. That's what you should do. So then Peter's like, you know what? I think you're supposed to be the top Avenger.
Yeah.
Please take these glasses. And Mysterio's like, no, they're yours. Tony gave them to you. And Peter's like, I think Tony gave me the decision to make who it would be. Because he would trust what my decision would be. So in a roundabout way, Mysterio did manipulate him into giving him the glasses. So then Peter leaves and he's like, you can just see like weight off his shoulders. He's going to go enjoy the rest of his vacation.
Yeah.
And then
the bar melts away.
The bar starts to pixelate away.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people start to pixelate away. And
and then Jake's sitting there with his fingers up and he's like to wait. And cut, like we got it. Like here we go.
Yeah. And it's like it's one of those scenes where I feel like it really shouldn't work. This next scene.
It's so cheesy.
Yeah.
But
and the music is cheesy too.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's cheesy in the way that like I said in the Endgame episode, because I'm editing it right now and I'm hearing myself say it so many times. It like falls into the like Cap fighting Cap and Professor Hulk, where it's like, if we have not got to a point where we can enjoy a scene like this,
what has this all been about?
Then Marvel was pointless, because this is like thrilling to me.
Yeah.
And then we see that like this was a whole plan, and these are all ex-Tony Stark workers who he has screwed.
Specifically, Jake Gyllenhaal's character created this hologram
that they use at the beginning of Civil War.
Yeah.
That he acronyms
Tony
BARF.
acronyms BARF.
And then there's
he fires Mysterio for being unstable.
Yeah.
And then throughout, then you see that one of the right hand mans to Mysterio is in Iron Man 1.
Yeah, he's in the first
Jeff Bridges
Iron Man
is like
movie.
yelling at him about not doing something right.
Yeah, William is his name.
Yeah.
And then this other girl who's like the costume designer. And then this brings up kind of an interesting thing that I can't take all the way, but I think the movie has that I saw pointed out, funny enough, in an honest trailer for the movie. It has this kind of allegory about filmmaking. So like Jake Gyllenhaal's the director. The one girl, she's the costume designer, as you pointed out. You have
that other guy's got to be special effects.
He's special effects and all of that stuff. And then in this scene, Jake says, what does he say? He says, you can be the smartest guy in the room, but no one will listen to you unless you have a cape or shoot lasers out of your hands, which kind of, you can see how like Martin Scorsese wants to make a movie. Maybe that's a bad example because of that whole controversy. Yeah, maybe don't use him
as an example.
But a famous director wants to make a movie. Well, it doesn't really get a big release, and people are like, yeah, whatever, I don't really want to see it. But then Taika Waititi or something like gets to do Thor Ragnarok, and everyone's like, Taika Waititi's a genius because he did Thor Ragnarok, because he shot lasers out of his hands, and he's got this, whereas like Taika Waititi's best work is not even, like, all of his movies are better than Thor Ragnarok that I've seen. So there's this interesting commentary
but if he didn't
on
do that,
like
it's
the
like,
superhero.
Because Taika's always been cult.
Yeah.
Like cult following. Now he's mainstream following.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, would he ever be able to be mainstream following without a Marvel movie?
And it's just because now it's almost like a Marvel movie is like a rite of passage. Like you haven't, quote, made it as a director until you've done a Marvel movie. And so it's a really interesting they pointed that out in the Honest trailer, so that's not like my idea. But watching it, you're like, yeah, that's kind of like an upset filmmaker who wanted to make something great. Not that Marvel movies aren't great, but like
Edgar
they wanted
Wright
to
probably wanting to make a better Ant-Man.
Yeah, or like someone just wanting to make like a good indie movie, and then they have to like make a Marvel movie so that they can like tell a story and like trick an audience into like seeing a movie that's actually about African culture.
Yeah.
When they had to like make a Black Panther movie to do that.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, which is so fascinating, and I think it brings a really interesting facet to this movie.
Yeah.
And so
he tells them what their plan has been all along, and what from there on it continues to be, which is the end goal is that Mysterio will become the top Avenger.
Yeah. And this scene's really cool because the way they shot it, there's like some black and white scenes, and they like pause on photos and like zoom in, and it just has this really cool kind of retro like 90s throwback vibe to it that's super cool. Yeah. And then kind of to power through here a little bit, MJ and Peter Parker go to a bridge, and they discover that Mysterio isn't who he said he is.
Peter Spider-Man.
Yeah, she finds that out.
And then they see the projector, and they're like, this has all been a ruse the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they find out next day they're going to London.
Yeah.
They have to go to London before they go home. So then they get to London, and then Brad has a moment because Peter's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Again. And Brad has a moment where he's like, guys, is no one going to talk about this truth? Is no one going to talk about how Peter just keeps leaving? He has family in Germany apparently now, and we're just fine with him leaving.
Yeah.
And I saw him in the bathroom with this woman back in Prague, and are we just not going to talk about how weird he's being? And then MJ's like, let's talk about your truth, Brad. How come you're taking pictures of people in the bathroom? Yeah. And then Martin Starr's just like, yeah, Brad, you shouldn't be doing that.
And then JB Smoove says something like, okay, I'm going to be the cool teacher. We got to talk about why you're doing this.
Yeah. So then they're all loaded onto a double-decker bus, and one of the guy who is driving the bus is on Quentin's team.
Yeah. But pause before we'll come back to that, because we don't want to skip that Peter Parker goes to Nick Fury, and he's like, okay, Mysterio wasn't who he said he was, but it was all set up by Mysterio, and we have this amazing sequence in the movie that's crazy visual effects, and I love that they just go full on like cartoony
and
crazy dream sequence where he's like falling down hallways, and there's like a globe of New York that turns out to be Mysterio's face,
and it's very horror shots at some point.
Yeah,
and then you see like Iron Man as a zombie coming out of his grave.
And he's basically saying, like, you're not good enough, Peter. You never were. Like, you're always just going to be a pale imitation of Tony Stark. Like, you're nothing. And I'm sorry I have to do this to you, but I have to. And then Mysterio's walking up to him, and Spider-Man's about to get him, or Mysterio's about to get him, and then Nick Fury shoots him. And Spider-Man's like, oh, thank goodness. And then Nick Fury melts away, and it's Mysterio. And he's like, that is so easy. And then a train goes by, hits Spider-Man, and he gets stuck in the Netherlands.
Yes.
And he wakes up in a prison to some of the nicest people in the world who stay in the prison after he breaks out, jail rather. Very funny. Happy picks him up, and they have a really great moment. Great acting. Tom Holland again. Great acting. Marvel's dad, Jon Favreau. It's cool to see him. You know, I don't know how involved he's going to be as the future goes, but he directed Iron Man 1, and to see him like at the end of Phase 3, like helping pass the baton from Tony to Spider-Man, because I feel like that whole sequence on the jet is like, you're the leader of the Avengers now.
And what's cool too is he has this little moment where he's like, you know, Tony was my best friend. And I saw him go through some really terrible stuff, and he had to make some really hard decisions. And then that's all to go through. Then he starts watching Peter having to make similar hard decisions now. And you can see his has a proud look on his face, not in a dad way, but in a friend way.
Yeah.
As he sees Peter start to be like, okay, I'm going to take control, and I'm going to,
you know, the emotional climax for Spider-Man. And now he's like, okay, we got to save my friends. I'm going to be able to do this. He makes a new suit in the jet. They fly away to some AC/DC music, which he confuses with Led Zeppelin, which is cool because AC/DC is Iron Man. And then they go to New York. I think it's the first song that plays in Iron Man as well, is that song, Back in Black. Pretty sure. Definitely, yeah. And then they fly to London. They have this big final fight. And as they're doing it, what's really cool. The visual effects are really cool. And what I love about rewatching the movie is some of the stuff that doesn't look that realistic. You're like, but even in the world that we're watching this in, it's not realistic.
And what's cool is you see Mysterio fighting this elemental that is comprised of all of the elements. So it's like, oh, it's the big guy of all big guys. And Quentin has a conversation with his people beforehand where he's like, it needs to be here and it needs to be this big. And people are like, there's going to be more casualties if that happens. And he's like, that's perfect. We need more casualties. We need an Avenger level threat. And then before that, they make sure that no Avengers are available to go. So it's only Mysterio who can do it. Which is it's good because it ties that little bow up, so you're not questioning like, how come Doctor Strange wouldn't show up? Stuff like that. So then you see Mysterio fighting this elemental, but he's actually not fighting it. He's not flying around. He's on this bridge in his VFX suit.
Yeah.
Like directing everything.
Yeah,
and
really
like,
cool.
He's like, I need a line. And a guy who's been writing the script gives him a line, and he tells Fury.
The screenwriter.
Cool. And he tells Fury a line, and he's doing that throughout. And then you see at one point he says, I forget the exact line that he says, but he says something, and Nick looks at Maria, this look on his face like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
That's like, something's off here.
He says, now that's some bullshit.
Yeah. And then
and Sam Jackson saying that is music to my ears.
And I can't remember if it's right before that or after that when Jon Favreau calls Nick, and he's like, starts talking about a surfboard, and then he's like, not everything's as it seems. Not everything looks as it seems. And Fury's like, what is he talking about? But of course he knows what he's talking about. It's a coded message. And then Peter is dropped out of the plane and goes into the elemental because it is just drones projecting.
Yeah.
And he
the
destroys.
Inside is so cool.
So cool. And then he destroys the projections.
Yeah. And all of this, they do like these cool drone shots that are like connected to Spider-Man or connected to the drone. So they have that weird, smooth movement.
Yeah.
All of that is pretty inventive and looks really fascinating. And you're doing those little things like he has little issues to solve throughout the fights, so it makes it interesting. The kids are trapped in a tower.
Like in a museum. Because there are drones coming after him, they're going to kill him, and Favreau's with them at that point. Because he's like, I need to take you guys onto this plane. The plane gets blown up by the projectors.
Yeah.
So then they go into a museum.
Yeah.
And then continue fight sequence.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just becoming more challenging. Peter, it's not just obviously strength. There is a moment where he has to like mathematically kind of figure things out too, like methodically.
Yeah. And there's that cool scene where he's out of web, and so he has to like use the sonar like boost and fly in and like do all this cool stuff that like looks visually really cool. They use slow motion in an interesting, cool way. Well, I mean a normal way, but it just like really pops. And then he finally gets to Mysterio
on the bridge,
and they have their whole little last few moments, and then Mysterio tries to like create a weird sequence again, and then the music goes away and Spider-Man breathes heavy and he goes, doesn't he say, come on, Peter Tingle?
Something like that. I don't know.
And
maybe.
then he like jumps, and it's really cool because he's
nothing.
jumping on like drones and stuff,
But you
they're
can't
not
see 'em.
there until he like rips him down.
Yeah.
And then he gets Mysterio, and then Mysterio tries to shoot him. He pulls out his hand because Mysterio is actually standing behind him.
Yeah, not in front of him.
Yeah.
And then he gets shot by a drone. Mysterio gets shot by a drone.
Yeah, and he looks at him and he's like, "Is this real?"
And
With the Edith glasses.
Because he gets the glasses back, and Edith says, "This is real."
Yeah.
And then probably my favorite last line in the entire universe, is when Quentin, as he's dying, because I think Peter says like, what is this all for? And then Quentin says, I have
the line if you don't remember it.
Well, Quentin says, people want to believe, and nowadays they'll believe anything.
Yeah. And that's great.
Yeah.
And it kind of, finishes the commentary on like the filmmaking and like these movies, which is fascinating.
MJ and Peter get their kiss, and it's so wonderful because I feel like it's a very high school kiss.
Yes.
Just pecks. It's not like a full on makeout.
It's very awkward.
It's very awkward, and it's very cute and just very heartwarming.
Yeah. And then, the movie sums up. William from the Iron Man movie downloads a program onto his computer, which we don't know what happens with that. Mm-hmm. They arrive at the airport, they get home, and then Flash Thompson looks at his butler and he goes, "Is Mother going to be here?" And he goes, "No." Now you might be going, "Wow, that's really interesting," because they added the text earlier in the movie, and then they have that scene.
What's the payoff
going
here?
on? Because that's what I thought. I'm like, maybe in Spider-Man 3 we'll get a payoff. Found out the actor himself, Tony something, I can't remember his last name. He commented on it, and maybe they will make something of it because they have a tendency to do that.
Yeah.
But they were filming the last day of shooting, and one version of the scene was that Butler was his dad that they were going to film, and then the other scene was it was his driver. And so he was like, wouldn't it be kind of funny if this guy he's just this washed up guy, and he's like, "Where's Mother?" And like says it in that weird kind of way, and they were all like, "Yeah, that's kind of funny. Let's do that." They were like getting drinks, like him and the director, before the last day of shooting. And so they shoot that, and then they added the text earlier, and apparently it was just to be like a joke that
it's just so sad.
Guy,
it's not funny to me.
I know. I feel like maybe if we were there, like filming, like maybe we would have gotten that it was funny.
They should have done one more thing, and then it would have been a joke.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would be, but just need one more thing.
There's so much attention drawn to it that it feels important rather than a joke.
Yes.
If it was a different movie, I don't think I'd think it was important. Maybe I would think it's a joke.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of interesting though. And I have a feeling that they're going to make something of it.
Yeah, sure. Cool.
They may as well. They'll probably rewatch those movies and be like, let's just turn that into something.
Yeah.
Maybe your mom is a bad guy or something. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever.
So the movie ends. We have a mid-credit sequence where he takes MJ swinging. Well, actually, they do that at the end of this movie, and she's like, "Ooh, I don't ever want to do that again." They land, and then they have this moment, and I had turned to Jordan in the credits, and I go, J.K. Simmons has always said that he would reprise his role as J. Jonah Jameson, and so I was thinking, like, it would have been cool if he was
the moment
in this movie, but I thought they were leading up to that, but I guess not. And then it pops up, and it's like, Mysterio says this stuff, and Mysterio's like, he's trying to kill. He's setting up Spider-Man
Peter
as a bad
just shot
guy.
me. Peter's shooting at me.
Yeah.
Well, no, he's saying Spider-Man is shooting at me. Spider-Man is trying.
Oh, that's
to kill
what William
me.
was doing at the end of the movie.
Oh, really? You didn't know that?
No, I thought he was.
When you just said William took the flash drive out of his computer, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna build up to that moment. Okay,
no, I didn't realize
that's
that.
what he was doing. So he's like, Spider-Man shooting me, and then it cuts out. And then one more video shows up of Quentin, and he says, "Spider-Man's Peter Parker," and then it shows a picture of Peter Parker.
Yeah, and then it brought to you by the Daily Bugle, and it's J.K. Simmons reprising his role, and now he's doing kind of like an Alex Jones podcasting alt-right like guy who's just like spouting off conspiracies. And remember, he says like the greatest hero of our time, Mysterio. Because he's always like not into people who help Spider-Man. And I was like, no, that was like the coolest moment of the movie. And then the movie ends.
Yeah.
And then we have a post-credit sequence where there are scrolls that were Nick and Maria Hill. I think the post-credit sequence...
Well, the scroll specifically, it was Ben Mendelsohn.
Yes.
And his wife.
And it's cool to see Ben Mendelsohn, but to me, I'm like, this doesn't really make a lot of sense because of the way Nick Fury acted in the movie was very Nick Fury and not someone pretending to be Nick Fury.
Yeah.
And it's one of those like,
I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen.
Yeah, unless they like make a actual specific point
Plus,
about
because
it.
this is post Endgame, I think it is important to show what Fury and Maria Hill's roles are now.
Yeah.
And how Endgame has, because they were obliterated, so like how their roles have been affected by it.
Yeah, and
so I'm just choosing to forget that happened.
Yeah, I don't like that scene. So now we're finished with the movie. I like it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like it a lot?
I like it a lot.
Okay, so now we got 2 more things left for you. As a whole, really like this series. Excited for what is coming next. I do think like after this movie, there is, like with Endgame, there's kind of like a chapter is over. And if, like, for example, if the next 5 movies were horrible, I don't think it would bother me that much because I feel like they told a story already.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't happen. But here's what we have on the future. We have Black Widow, May 1st. The Eternals, November 6th. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, February 12th, 2021. Doctor Strange 2, May 7th, 2021. Thor, Love and Thunder, November 5th, 2021.
Love and Thunder?
Yep.
Barf.
Black Panther 2, May 6th, 2022. We don't know when Guardians 3 is coming out, to be announced. Blade movie starring Mahershala Ali. I hope that's rated R.
Into it.
That's cool.
Into it.
Actually, I don't care if it's rated R.
Into it. Mahershala Ali, what a great cast.
Perfect.
Casting choice.
And I hope Wesley Snipes makes a cameo in it. He has to, right? That would be cool.
I guess.
TV shows, Disney Plus, Falcon and Winter Soldier coming out 2020, excuse me. And then in 2021, we have WandaVision, Loki, a What If series, a Hawkeye series starring the girl from Bumblebee and True Grit. I think she becomes like a Hawkeye, like he trains her or something like that. And then we have Marvel 616, which is going to be a documentary show about the impact of Marvel.
Ooh, that sounds good. I'm into that.
And then now we have, as we do on every episode, not every episode, every series, now that we are done with the series, we go through our list. And there are 23 movies to list. So I'm going to go first, if that's all right with you, Jordan.
Cool.
And you'll finish us off, and then we will make our announcement of next week, which we've already announced, but we'll do our plugs.
Cool.
Bottom of the pack, we got, I'm going to go from bottom to best. Ant-Man and the Wasp, The Incredible Hulk, Ant-Man, Thor, Thor the Dark World, The Avengers, Thor Ragnarok, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Age of Ultron, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Captain Marvel, Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Captain America the First Avenger, Iron Man 3. Yeah, I'm going to switch that, actually. Iron Man 3, then Captain America the First Avenger, Spider-Man Homecoming, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Spider-Man Far From Home, then Avengers Infinity War, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and then at the top of the pack, Avengers Endgame.
So this will be interesting because my list is pretty different in the middle.
Okay.
So our last chunk are exactly the same. Ant-Man and the Wasp. This is from least to greatest.
Okay.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, Hulk, Ant-Man, Thor in the Dark World, Avengers, Winter Soldier, Ragnarok, Iron Man, Iron Man 3, Captain America, Iron Man 2.
Wait, which Captain America?
Iron Man 1, Iron Man 3, Captain America, Iron Man 2, Captain Marvel.
I'm sorry, just which Captain America are you talking about?
The first one.
Oh, okay.
Because I said Winter Soldier earlier.
Yeah, but there's Civil War too.
I'm not there yet.
I know. You just said
Captain
America.
The first Captain America, Iron Man 2, Captain Marvel, Ultron, Civil War, Homecoming, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Far From Home, Infinity War, Guardians 1, Endgame, Guardians 2.
So you switched to the top 2. Yeah, I figured you had. So that's it. Thank you for listening. Make sure and jump on Patreon, patreon.com/Micah McCaw. And by now, I'm going to be... The album comes out January 10th, but if you go for as little as $5, you can download the entire album today.
Do it.
Thank you for listening. See you next week when we do Toy Story, and we jump into Toy Story with a special guest. All right, bye.